and welcome to Notebook Videos. Our today's lesson on business studies is from the chapter Forms of Business Organization. As we proceed with our lesson, we need to get introduced to a few new people. Come, let's get started. This is Deepshika. Deepshika lost her dad when she was in the 10th grade. From then, her mother took care of her and the entire household. After graduating from art college, Deepshika took charge of her home. She set up her own art studio with a moderate bank loan. And it's all running fine since then. The young lady has engaged 2 helping hands, Kusum and Jenny, from her art college only. However, there are only employees and take home a fixed salary every month. The entire risk and return of the art studio is only for Deepshika, as she is the single proprietor of the business. So students, what do you think such a form of business is called? Yes, it is called the sole proprietorship form of business. As the name sole proprietorship is broken down, we get sole, which means single, and proprietorship, which means owner. Such business necessarily have only one owner. Such forms of business generally grows in the gamut of personalized services such as beauty salon, consultation services, and small-scale local activities like a grocery outlet. All of you must have heard the names of Coca-Cola, Hewlett-Packard, Google, and Walt Disney. Yes, students, all of them started their company as sole proprietorship. Isn't that super interesting? Now, with Deepshika's art studio in mind, let us quickly understand the salient features of a sole proprietorship: formation and closure. There are hardly any formalities for opening and closing such a business other than operating license in most of the cases. Deepshika just had to get a trade license and her studio was up and running without much ado. Liability. Any liability to whatever extent is entirely on the shoulders of the owner. Deepshika's personal assets could be sold in case the liabilities of her art studio cannot be paid off anytime. Single profit recipient and risk bearer. This business form gives the risk and return to only one individual. In our example, we see Deepshika taking full risk and the entire rewards of the business. Absolute control. Sole proprietorship form of business gives the proprietor absolute control and decision-making for every inch of the business entity. Deepshika has all the control in her art studio. Her employees work on the basis of deliverables laid down by Deepshika herself. No separate entity. In the eyes of law, a sole proprietorship is no different from his or her business. This particular form of business does not stand out as a separate legal entity, and hence the proprietor needs to bear every liability of the business. Lack of business continuity. Such form of business depends entirely on the existence or available of the proprietor. There can be multiple adverse circumstances like bankruptcy, insanity, death, imprisonment, or any such physical ailment of the proprietor, which death stops the business continuity. Now we see Deepshika's mother setting up Deepshika's marriage to their neighbor's son who stays abroad. So in this case, once Deepshika leaves, the continuity of her studio will be doubtful. Now students, once you properly understand the features of a sole proprietorship business, you would yourself be able to enlist its merits and demerits. Want to try? Let's try the merits first. Since it all depends on one person, it induces quick decision making. As there are no peer or group pressures, such business forms can operate in a highly flexible environment. The sole proprietor is in a position to directly interact with the customers, which helps business growth. There being no one other than the proprietor in the entire game, confidentiality of business matters can be ensured. The sole proprietor can directly reap the benefits of her hard work without much hassle. As there are no other stakeholders, the hard work gets fully paid off solely to her credit. Being the single contributor, the sense of accomplishment on the arrival of success is extremely high here. The startup costs for such forms of business are relatively low due to its compliance and legal structure. This kind of business, being the least regulated form of business, is very easy to start and close down with minimum legal hassles. And now the demerits. As funds are pulled in only by one contributor, there is a limitation factor to funds and related resources in such business forms. There is a limitation to the life of this form of business concern. The unlimited liability on the proprietor is another huge demerit. It is understandable that a single person cannot master every skill set required to run a business. So, in such business forms, managerial ability stays limited. It also runs the risk of wrong decisions. The benefits of large-scale economies remain usually unexplored in such business forms. So students, with almost every important aspect of sole proprietorship being explained, we will now close this part of the lesson. See you soon in our next lessons covering the other forms of business organization. Till next, Deepshika and Notebook bids you goodbye.